Hey everybody, it's Tyler Austin. Obviously, it is a big talk right now about the Astroworld Festival and what happened.
This video shows how crowded it was and difficult to get a man out.
That's okay with you.
It's like embedded in my brain that I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop reading about it. It horrifies me to my core. It was almost like, I have been to more festivals that I could probably list off. More than anything, Bass Nectar shows, which, has this sort of rage culture. Based on how a lot of people are talking about this event, I don't think that they have ever been in that tightly packed of a space with people specifically at a show. I lead a dark history ghost tour through Brooklyn. We actually talk about two instances of human stampedes or crowd crushes. And I guess talking about it as a bystander in an event that happened in history, I never took the time to really put myself into the mindset or the imaginative space of what it must be like to actually be in that situation. This is kind of a response, I guess, to people that are very quick to blame the crowd and very quick to blame the performer. As I started reading about this and I heard the word crowd surge, I had never heard that word before. I immediately, the king of all things, went to Wikipedia. They tend to involve dense crowds with people closely surrounded on all sides. Human stampedes and crushes also occur as people try to get away from a perceived danger. The second instance that we talk about on my tour actually is the Brooklyn Theater fire. This was a fire that broke out on December 5th, 1986. Essentially, there was only one door to get out of. That door only opened inward towards the building. So when you have 1,000 people trying to press their way out of a burning building, obviously, that's not really going to happen. I always told this story on my tour as sort of, people crushed and pushed over each other, and I never thought about what actually happened as people tried to go through the actual door. The Brooklyn Bridge, there was a moment on the Brooklyn Bridge where people thought that it was collapsing and everybody panicked and started to run away and ended up crushing people in the process. Crowd density is way more important than size. A density of 4 people per square meter begins to be dangerous, even if the crowd is not very large. Academic experts who study crowd movements and crushing disasters oppose the use of the term stampede. They believe that stampede insinuates that the crowd inside of this is animalistic or mindless in nature, which is very much not the case. Most reported stampedes are better understood as progressive crowd collapses. When you are that close together, you can't move to the point where you go to take a step and anywhere that you step that isn't where your foot just came up from is either going to step on somebody else's feet, or if you do try to walk, your feet literally get caught on other people's legs and you can't move your feet. It can be very scary and very terrifying. And when I think back to when I was going to these shows and we were that densely packed and that was kind of the point, I guess I never really thought of how dangerous that environment could be. And there are specifically people that obviously study this way more than I have. So essentially, when you are this close together, you no longer act like one person. You act like a mob, like fluid, actually. You there will be shock waves that flow through the audience, and there are certain moments in the Astroworld video where you can see this happening, where people just kind of float.
Chase B. What's happening, my boy?
Now, the interesting thing about this, if you were to jump, you wouldn't go back down. You would be floating with the people. You can't really... I heard some people say, why didn't some people crowd surf to safety? I've seen that some people did, but after a certain point, your arms are either stuck up or they're stuck down. There's like there's no in between, unfortunately. The way the stage was set up was like a pretty classic setup for a stage in general. You can compare it to, I don't know what RL stands for, but the RL Festival. I'm not really a big rap fan, but the RL Festival. So it's T-style barriers, which, there's one that leads through the crowd, and then two that kind of spark off from it, and the crowd fills in between. And this is to break up the crowd so that these surges don't happen, allow people to have an escape on the sides, and keep people from crushing too hard towards the front. I've heard of some stories of the Rolling Stones actually spraying the crowd with water and telling them to take a few steps back. I've been to a few shows where this has happened, where they say take a few steps back, and this is for reasons that I'm only just realizing now. Hi, it's Tyler. I'm in the middle of editing, and I just realized I wanted to point out that telling this audience to move back wouldn't have made sense because all three barriers were blocking in those two front sections, those general admissions sections. So telling them to step back, they wouldn't have known that they could step back. There was nowhere to go back. You had to go sideways, which was probably very confusing at the time because those two sound stages towards the back were huge and didn't need to be that big. So, bye. I mean, there was nothing more terrifying than... oh my god, then the idea of those kids just literally dying with people dancing around them. The crushed zone is so far away from the people that are actually creating the crush that the people that are creating the crush, they're not standing behind the audience like pushing them closer and closer together. Maybe they feel like they're doing the normal thing where you stand in a concert and you kind of knock into people a little bit when you're that close together, especially when you're that close to the stage. And just from those people swaying into each other, it like ripples all the way to the front or the corners or wherever exactly it was happening here, and forces those people to get closer together and closer together. And then when you have a barrier in front of you that is supposed to weigh or withstand like 1,000 pounds, the barricade's gonna win against all those people. There have been moments where crowds have actually bent the barricade, so you can imagine the force that is literally behind these waves inside of the crowd. And if you lose your footing, because what can also happen in these situations is that like the front of your body goes this way, but your legs kind of hang out to the side, but your balance is being kept because of the people that are around you that you are holding onto. If one person falls and one person either tries to help or is just standing next to them, those waves are more than that person can handle. And since they were relying on the person that was standing next to them to stay standing up, they fall on top of that person. Somebody reaches down to try to help the person on the ground, and they fall as well, and then they fall on top of each other, and this is what led to a lot of the really awful deaths that happen there. Now, the people that are actually in these sinkholes, think about you being the first one to go down, and all these people are landing on top of you. It no longer becomes like, oh, I'm at a concert. It becomes a fight for your life, essentially, and it's like trying to stay above water. You want to stay above the bodies that are currently crushing down on top of you. In order to do that, you need to push up against things to, keep your head above the sea of people. All of these people, and I've seen videos, I'll probably play one here. Where like 20 different people fell on top of each other. And it's not just like 20 people that are like, oh, we all fell down. They're all trying to get back up. They all feel like they're gonna die. So one person's pushing down another person, getting on top of them. It's the only way for them to save their own life. And this just kind of ripples throughout the entire thing. A crowd crush, as such, ensues when a large crowd is trying to move in a certain direction to reach an objective or in response to the need to move forwards due to the events at the back, with those at the back pushing forward not knowing that those at the front are being crushed. This may happen if an exit expected to be open is blocked. I'm sure that everybody has experienced this, where you're kind of just following the crowd of people and then they're like, oh, this isn't the right way to go. And you were just following them because that's where everybody was going. Journalistic misuse of the term stampede is the result of pure ignorance and laziness. It gives the impression that it was a mindless crowd only caring about themselves and they were prepared to crush people. In reality, individuals are directly crushed by others nearby who have no choice, and those who can choose how to move are too distant from the epicenter to be aware of what is happening. Which is an absolutely terrifying thought. Like, I've heard people saying that, you know, when I go to shows, I pick the person up that falls down next to me, and like, yeah, no shit. I'm sure that there are many people that had that same thought. You couldn't. The people that fell, like, you couldn't do it. I mean, oh my god, it bothers me to think about it. It really does. And like, I had to get this out of my brain. I don't even care if this isn't a good video. I just need to talk about it. Okay, so get this. So this is, like, I'm not doing a deep dive here. I'm just, like, looking at the Wikipedia and talking about some things that I knew that I never really thought about. Like, get this. A common aftermath after a crush with serious consequences, Astroworld, is that those responsible for the event where the crush took place, authorities such as government bodies and news media, blame the crowd and the victims for being out of control and causing the crush, sometimes to the extent of a full cover-up. Now imagine this. If you were following, like, I, in the middle of the night, saw the first headline that mentioned that there were a bunch of people that had passed away at this event, and it was maybe like an hour after it was posted, and then just for the next 5 days, I just sat there, like, in a hole, like, sick to my stomach, awful. Then the story started to roll out, you know, drugs for a little bit, although that didn't really take everything, and I think a lot of people could tell that it wasn't just drugs. I think it's a mix of those things. I think it's a mix of drugs, poor crowd control, which should be the priority of the thing. Stories started to come out that there was somebody running around in the crowd, stabbing people with needles. From the way this crowd sounded and looked, if a person was there to stab people with needles, one, he wouldn't be able to move his arms to the people that it actually happened to. And to get that many people, he would have had to fluidly been moving through the crowd. So maybe it was, I don't know, a cloud person that was going around doing this. I think that is a very lazy way to try to distract attention from this event. So get this. Later analysis, sometimes after those actually responsible have retired, may show that the disaster was largely caused in the moral and legal rather than physical sense by actions of those planning or an authority of the event. Then, because I already had the knowledge of the Brooklyn Bridge and the Brooklyn Theater fire, that's when it led me down to all of the times that this has happened in history. But like, how do we prevent something like this happening? Well, it is believed that most major crowd disasters can be prevented by simple crowd management strategies. If you were to ask me, who do I think is to blame? I think it's a really tough call. I think that the event organizers and Live Nation really need to deal with this. Live Nation is the company that was responsible for throwing Astroworld. I think they do Bonnaroo or Lollapalooza, one of the ones that I've never been to. I do think that Travis Scott holds some blame as well. I don't think that you can so much say that he's to blame for not stopping the show, but I do think that he is to blame for encouraging this rage culture. Now, this is also really funny because I watched the first video, or like the promo video that was going around for Astroworld.
Astroworld Fest in full swing, but now with extra security.
We want to show you what it looked like when the festival opened its doors today.
Strong, and we got another stretch.
Like, I didn't even know this festival existed. I didn't even know who Travis Scott was until they were like, oh, he sings Goosebumps, and I was like, oh, okay. But like, people are moshing to that. Like, I didn't understand it. And then I saw the promo video. It's got people running through gates, all that stuff. You know, I didn't realize that he kind of encourages this behavior. Then there's a video of him making somebody jump off of the 3rd-story balcony at Terminal 5 in New York City at one of his shows. Apparently the kid broke his legs. Who knows if that's true? But he does encourage this sorts of thing. So yes, I think he is partly to blame. Suddenly become like you just like rage to everything? I don't know. Even the promo video, I was like, that's what people mosh to? I don't get it, but maybe I'm an old man. So yeah, I don't really know what else I wanted to say. I think I said my piece. Is there anything else I want to add? I don't think so. Thank you guys very much for joining me for this one. It was a quick one. You know, I wanted to sit down and like write this whole like history of crowd crushes, but they do already exist on the internet. So this is just me talking about it as a person because it really fucked me up and I wasn't even there. I don't know. I just think that it's important that we all take care of each other and make sure each other are safe, and it just kind of sucks because anything that I say is not going to change what happened. I think that this might bring some new conversations for good and also for bad when it comes to festival music, concerts, what it's like. I can already see it. There's like a bounce castle in the corner, and they're like, oh, that's the rage section, but first you have to wear these safety equipment or like whatever. I mean, they're not gonna be able to stop it from happening, so it'll be really interesting how this unfolds. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Feel free to check out more, and I got more great content for you coming. Have a good day.